poised 250 miles north of the islands at 0620 Hawaii time. The first of the 350 airplanes of the Japanese strike force climb into the pre-dawn darkness and begin their journey to their unsuspecting targets. They use the Honolulu radio station playing popular songs to guide them to their fateful destinations. As the airplanes approach, operators at a Pono radar station spot the strike force and report it to their superiors. The officer in charge mistakes the strike force for a flight of B-17s that's arriving for the mainland, and no report is made. The temperature is a balmy 72 degrees as the sun breaks over the horizon on Oahu. The servicemen at the U.S. Naval Base on Pearl Harbor and Hickam Air Force Base look forward to a relaxing Sunday in a beautiful island paradise. But that is not to be. At 0753, Lieutenant Masato Fujita keys his radio and issues those now famous words, Tora, 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 signifying the Japanese have achieved complete surprise. Meanwhile, the soldiers and sailors on Oahu are beginning to rise, taking their first sips of coffee, some sitting down to breakfast, all unaware of what is about to happen. Now, look to your left. Imagine you looking over the bow of a ship, wondering who that is flying in now, and imagine it's December 7th, 1941, and you are there! Your confusion as the first bombs explode, the first sirens and alarms sound. Right now, right here, listen to the sounds of battle. Hear the sirens, just as they did that fateful day. Feel the explosions, hammer your chest, just as they did that fateful day. Smell the smoke as it burns your nostrils, just as they did that fateful Sunday morning. Look, listen, and remember, for we must never forget. The Japanese planes attack relentlessly. Many servicemen believe the attack is some kind of crazy air raid drill. They think the airplanes are American. In fact, one soldier remarks, "This is the best dang drill the Air Force has ever put on." But when the rising suns become visible on the wings of the airplanes, everyone knows this is no drill. General Short, the commander of Army Forces, is notified of the attack while playing golf. His response is, "That is ridiculous." General Short will wish he could have been right, but he has never been more wrong. The highly coordinated attack goes off like clockwork. At 0755, bombers attack Wheeler and Hickam Air Force Base. 2 minutes later, torpedo planes, just like the ones you are seeing in front of you now, begin their attack on Battleship Row. Sleepy-eyed sailors stumble outside to see Japanese airplanes everywhere. Circling the skies and waiting to attack, the ships lined up side by side along Battleship Row. Sitting side by side, they make sitting ducks in the middle of Pearl Harbor. In fact, the Japanese have designed new torpedoes capable of striking the ships in the shallow harbor, a technological advancement the Americans are sadly unaware of. The practice ship Utah was the first to be hit. It lifts and sinks. The light cruiser Raleigh takes 2 torpedoes. The battleship Oklahoma and West Virginia are next. The Oklahoma lifts, then capsizes, rolling on to the battleship USS Maryland. When the Oklahoma sinks, her belly thrusting out of the burning waters of Pearl Harbor, hundreds of men are trapped. Only 32 of these men will survive, and they will not be rescued until a full 36 hours after the attack. The battleship California takes 2 torpedoes and sinks, and at that same time, the USS Arizona, which has already taken a torpedo, has a bomb strike next to its number 2 turret. The 1,700-pound projectile penetrates deep into the belly, first through 1 deck, then through 2 decks. It lodges next to the number 2 magazine, detonates, and seconds later, the Arizona erupts like a volcano, rising out of the harbor, flames shooting over 500 feet in the air. Almost 1,200 men perish in that moment. Sent to a watery grave, those brave young men still rest in the hold of that great ship at the Arizona Memorial. A testament to their courage, their sacrifice, and their honor. At 08:35, the first wave ends. The damage is horrendous. In Washington at 08:50 Hawaii time, early afternoon in the States, an hour after the attack has begun, Secretary of State Cordell Hull, well aware of what is transpiring in Hawaii, erupts when given a letter from the Japanese breaking off peace talks. I have never seen a document that was more crowded with infamous falsehoods and distortions on a scale so huge that I never imagined until today that any government on this planet was capable of uttering them. The second wave of the Japanese attack swarms over Hawaii at 08:55. 132 additional aircraft spread out to hit ships, airfields, and barracks throughout Oahu. But, as you can see in front of you, for the second wave, the element of surprise is gone, and the Americans fight back, making the Japanese pay, inflicting some damage of their own. A bomb hits the destroyer down while she sits in dry dock. Another strikes the commander of naval forces at Husband Jones' flagship, the battleship Pennsylvania, which is in dry dock, detonating guns and ammunition. Dive bombers attack the Raleigh, which has already been hit by torpedoes. One bomb misses the ship's aviation tanks by mere feet. The flames on West Virginia now reach as high as the foresail. The attack is devastating, but the day also has numerous stories of heroism. On the Nevada, at the south end of Fort Island, is able to open fire at 08:02, although her captain and senior officers are not on board. Lieutenant J.S. Thomas ignores his wounds and gets the ship underway, even with a huge hole in her port bow. He is able to beach the ship at Hospital Point in order to not block the channel. On the Nevada also, 21-year-old Joseph Tossick Jr. off the deck, mounts an anti-aircraft battery and continues to direct fire at enemy aircraft even after a bullet passes through his thigh. He refuses to leave his comrades, refuses to leave the battle. There are also stories of irony. As word of the extent of the devastation reaches Washington, the country is stunned. Later that day, President Franklin Roosevelt addresses a shocked nation.
December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The attack yesterday on the Hawaiian Islands has caused severe damage to American naval and military forces. I regret to tell you that very many American lives have been lost. With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph, so help us God.
At 10 o'clock, the last of the strike force makes its way back to the waiting carriers, and the Japanese ships begin their long journey back to Japan. The attack lasted only 120 minutes, but American bases lay in ruins, smoke billowing up from the devastation. 8 battleships, 3 cruisers, 3 destroyers, and 4 auxiliary ships, 18 ships in all, lay foundering in the oil-covered waters of Pearl Harbor. More than 350 aircraft stand broken or completely destroyed. In reality, America's Pacific Fleet has simply ceased to exist. But most horrific, 3,500 Americans lay dead or wounded in what remains of Pearl Harbor and Hickam Air Force Base. The Japanese lost 29 planes and less than 200 men. The Army and Navy spend the rest of the day attending to the wounded and putting out fires. The Arizona alone burns for 3 days. Yes, President Roosevelt issued a call to arms, and America listened. No one expected the surprise attack that fateful day. America was not ready for war, but America responded. America pulled together, and America was victorious. Young men joined the armed forces to defend this nation as women took their places in factories working long, hard hours to energize industry. Families rationed food and gasoline and many other items, sacrificing their own needs for the good of a nation. Liberty Gardens sprung up around the country so food could be sent to troops abroad. An entire nation refused to give in, refused to quit, refused to allow democracy to be destroyed. This nation, your nation, stood strong, stood proud, and in the face of adversity, against all odds, this nation prevailed. This was not the first time the United States has been challenged, threatened, or tested, and it will not be the last. Right now, as we enjoy this wonderful day in Houston, Texas, our sons, daughters, husbands, our wives, uncles, cousins, friends, our countrymen are defending America in far-off lands, sacrificing so you and I might enjoy the lasting tradition of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We must never forget those who have sacrificed to make sure America stays strong. Please remember those brave young men and women. I would ask, when you see someone in uniform, go up to them, look them in the eye, shake their hand, and say, "We are proud of what you do, and thank you."